Shalom and welcome to...
It's facing us.
Oops. Say hi, everyone.
Hello.
Shalom and welcome to Practical Spirituality here at Aish HaTorah in the old city of Jerusalem, overlooking the Temple Mount. And please join the Yom Tov Media Club, yomtovmediaclub.com. Please join the club, help get the word out. Now, today we're going to discuss the sacred feminine. And what that means exactly, I know a lot of you are like for example, the women in this class think this is going to be all about women. Sorry. I mean, we can certainly relate it to women, but it's not really what we're discussing here. What we're discussing is that, and sorry about the background noise, there's some group of highly rambunctious teenagers singing Kol HaOlam Kulo. Everyone's singing in a different key. Bouncing around at the kotel, which is right behind me. I can show them. They like to see this kind of stuff. So, say hi, guys. Here's the Vehayikar people here. Vehayikar lo lefached klal. Don't be afraid. And over there is like 1,000 soldiers who are being sworn into the Israeli army. They actually get, I don't know if you can see it, but there's these racks. Sorry, it's hard to hold the camera still when it's on Zoom. But you'll see there's racks of guns down there. And there's racks of M16s and Bibles. And everyone gets an M16 and a Bible, which is, pretty symbolic. And they should be blessed to actually study the Bible and not have to use those guns. I'm trying to turn in a way that I don't catch these girls here. Let's try. Oh wait, we need to do this. No one needs to know any of these girls are ditching seminary.
I'm sober.
You didn't even start seminary, right? They haven't started yet, have they? Sunday? Okay. The world is created by an infinite being. This infinite being is absolutely one. The problem is the world's not absolutely one. The world's made of multiplicity. There's a lot of molecules in this water. There's a lot of molecules in the tables around us, in our skin, the air around us. Like everything's made of stuff and a lot of it. So the physical world is made of what we'd call multiplicity. So we've got this oneness, the creator, which is absolutely one, creating the multiple. It's one becoming many, okay? And how one becomes many is that it sends what's called, and I'm not going to go into this in any depth right now, but what it sends is or light, sends light through a prism of 7 beams. Those 7 beams are Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, and Malchus. It prisms out light through 7 beams. Now, those 7 beams that it prisms through are the first 6 are called the masculine. That's the sacred masculine, the first 6. And it's by no coincidence, those 6, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, is the, your father would like this part, is those first 6 are the letter Vav, because Vav, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled, Hey, Vav. And when you look at the letter Vav, it connects heaven and earth. If that's heaven, if this is the spiritual, and this is the physical down here. So the Vav connects heaven to earth. You understand? It connects heaven and earth. And it's a connect, because what is a Vav? A Vav is a Yud. It's just like an idea of a Yud, as it starts, with a Yud here. Okay, that's a Yud. It's a Yud that's just, been implemented. It's an implemented idea. A Vav is just an implemented Yud. Is that clear? Yeah, that's what a Vav is. So the Vav equals 6, and it's telling you the secret of the sacred masculine, which is the causal. The causal. It's that light being prismed through an entire system. Now, where it leads to ultimately is the sacred feminine, which is the 7th attribute. It's called Malchus. And that's the Zion, which is the 7. That's the 7th attribute. You also got the Yud here. Okay, the Yud goes kind of like that. And then you got a Vav here. So it leads to the Zion, not a great Zion, but we'll do it like that. So the Vav leads to the receiving of the energy flow from the masculine, meaning it's the causal. This is why God is referred to often in the masculine, because God's not the receiver of creation. The receiver means the feminine, and the causer is the masculine. This, by the way, is in all mystical traditions. This is hardly a lack of an egalitarian, politically correct class here. That's not what we're doing here. It's all mysticism in every single culture has the causal is the masculine and the receiver is the feminine. We as human beings, when it comes to egalitarian subjects, we as human beings embody both. So, for example, when I was shooting down the trail on my mountain bike today, that was a very masculine causal thing. I was asserting myself on the natural world in a major way. But there were times I stopped, not too many, but I'm a little ADHD, but there were times I stopped and just received, I just took it in, being out in the really beautiful places that I was out in. And I just received and recognized the gift all around me. And I was in that receiving mode, which is the more feminine mode. So sometimes I'm in that mode. Sometimes my wife just gives, which is the masculine, and I just receive, which is the feminine. And sometimes I'm giving and she's receiving. And so we're always in these modes. And which is kind of weird for us, because you'd think when you're nurturing somebody, you're in the feminine, but you're actually, if you're nurturing someone, you're really mystically more in the masculine mode right there. It's just that women have that masculine side of being nurturing and caring better than men do. So it's interesting. Females have a more masculine side when it comes to caring for others. They will go out and cause all kinds of beautiful things towards other human beings, especially their own children, in ways that men just don't get as easily. We like to assert ourselves out there, we like to do it, we don't like domestic assertion. When we come home, we want to be held and cradled, take care of us, but our real challenge is the world at large, and we want to go assert ourselves out there and mark every lamppost we walk by and create more and more territory with our initials on it. So we express ourselves masculinely more outside the home. Inside the home, where men are a little more on the feminine side and women are a little more on the masculine side inside the home. But there's still nevertheless a lot of femininity going on because in the traditional home where the man was out there, where it's dangerous, because it's dangerous to make a living. Today it's not, because you just have to sit at the desk and push buttons. But historically, it was more dangerous out there, and men were really the ones to go out and throw the anchor and reel it back in and try not to get caught up in the gears of it all and not lose an arm or a leg, while out, fishing out there on the big fishing boats that people have been sending out for millennia. And but what he does in the end is he brings home something. And she receives what he brings home. And then masculines it into something. So if she could receive just money, but she may also receive flour, but she can take that flour and water and manipulate, which is back to the masculine, manipulate that into bread, and then give that bread, which is again masculine. And so it's interesting how much of women's lives are spent in the asserting mode, in that masculine mode. It's very interesting like that. Meanwhile, but all this tech obviously has shifted the professional roles to the point where tech's been very good for women in the workplace. It's made it less dangerous. It's less dangerous to make a living today, and women can enter that role without, too much harm. And so the only harm in the end is on the children, of the mother making the living is, the only harm is peripheral. It's not like they're gonna lose a leg, running some heavy machinery on a farm or something. Okay, Now anyway, but the feminine is the Zion, and the masculine is the Vav. And the Vav is also the shape of that part of the masculine. The bris is the Vav. That's the part your father would like. Yeah. And so the Vav is the masculine, the bris, the covenant, the circumcision part of the body, and that's the sixth attribute, because the other attributes are the right arm, the left arm, the chest, and then the right leg, the left leg, and then the private parts are the yisod. Yisod is the Vav, the sixth of all the attributes. Now, our world is the receiver, though. Meaning, look at the world around you. Like if you're watching this on computer or on your phone, just take a moment, and everyone right now, take a moment and experience your environment. Just experience your environment. It's really loud. Just experience your environment. You'll realize that the environment that you're in right now is all part of this sacred feminine. It's all the receiver. So, meaning all this causation of Genesis, of God creating the world right now, is landing into this room right now, or this, that world you see outside the windows. You're in Malchus. You're inside it. You're inside this receiving creation. It's always receiving, and it's always renewed in its receiving of the new input that God's creating from nothingness to somethingness, because everything's being created perpetually, something from nothing. God is machadish b'tuba v'choyim tamid ma'asav v'reishis. He's at all times perpetually renewing creation, and we're inside that feminine right now. We're in it. So take a moment and be in it. What's your name back there in the back?
Khalid?
Yeah, Khalid. I haven't seen you in a while. Khalid, can you turn the AC on, please?
I actually don't know how.
Let him try. Let him be the man for a moment. Just hit the power button. Thank you so much. You did a great job. Yeah, it wasn't too complicated. You did excellently. Let him be the man. He's going to press that button. Anyway, so the unfolding of infinite into finite is ultimately, it is the sacred feminine, because it's all receiving. And the way we can lock into that so easily by just being here right now. Like, I've been teaching the class, so I've been asserting my brain on you right now. Like, I've been in the asserting mode. But when I'm quiet, I'm not. And this is a good chance to get in touch with the sacred feminine, which is Malchus, is to just be in touch. It's true presence, like really to be present. And all of life works this way. Like, for example, we're counting the Omer, right? So every day of this, we have 7 weeks, right? There's the 7, you got the 6 and then the 7. So every day we're counting for 7 weeks, 7 days a week, this is the 2nd week. We're in the 5th day of the 2nd week. And that's a very specific thing. The 2nd week is the attribute of Gevurah, which means limitations in your life. like making sure you got your brakes on at the right times. You know, you're saying no when you should be saying no. And that because your life, you need breaks. Like you can't live without breaks. I mean, you got a job, there is compliance rules in every job, whether they've been stated or they're contractual or they're just implied in that workplace or that environment. There's rules there. And you don't follow those rules, there's going to be repercussions. And that's this week. This week is all about where you apply the brakes. And everywhere you go, there's different brakes, you know. Even meeting somebody, you know. If I met, I'm meeting this guy for the first time. Have I ever met you before?
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. What's your name?
I haven't met, but I mean, I've attended your lectures.
Great. What's your name?
Mark Eisenberg.
Oh, you're Mark, yeah. Good to see you. Long time. I haven't seen you in a few months. You were here like...
Not a few months.
More?
Yeah.
How long?
Years.
Years?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I feel like you were here. Anyway, Mark, if I meet you, it would be a very different experience than meeting like that lady in the back over there. What's your name?
Huvi.
What?
Huvi.
Shuvi? Kuvi? Huvi. Yeah, meeting Huvi and meeting Mark, when it comes to the attribute of limitation, it's going to be very different. I might shake his hand. No offense, Huvi, not shaking yours. You understand? Yeah, it doesn't matter it wouldn't matter literally, other than saving your life. I wouldn't touch you. No offense. But like, I would save your life. Then the first time I ever touched a woman was first time I touched a woman that was not a permitted person to touch, because I don't know if everyone knows that you don't touch people of the opposite gender in Judaism. Not Orthodox Judaism, okay? That's our tribal tradition. Touch is reserved for really one's spouse, but you're allowed to touch, obviously, immediate family. Anyway, but to save a life, you always save a life over every commandment besides 4. There's 4 commandments where you die first. One is if someone said kill or be killed, you should be killed. If someone says, obviously that's murder, meaning murder or be killed, you should be killed. Another is serve this idol or be killed, you should be killed. And the other is have this illicit relationship sexually or be killed. Women, there's a little more leniency because they can potentially be passive in the moment and they don't have to necessarily get killed, but a man would definitely have to be killed. And he would have to take a bullet, then do it. And then the last is to let's just put it real simply, to publicly desecrate any commandment, even a rabbinic one, like even the slightest thing, to publicly, like in front of 10 others, to desecrate something. It's better to get any law of Judaism publicly. It's better to take a bullet than do that. Now, why it is that we have to choose life over all other commandments is clear, because what good is being dead? You know, what good is dying? Like, keep the commandments and live in them. So then why would you have these 4 that you have to die for? And the reason is because if you had any idea meaning our soul's on a journey down here. And you want to hit the car wash as often as possible, meaning you get a lot of flies on the windshield running around this place. You know, anyone been on a road trip knows your windshield collects dead insects, and you need to keep those wipers on. In other words, you got to be keeping the Torah as much as you can to stay clean while you're down here. And everyone, of course, loves the reset button of Yom Kippur. That's an important day. It's not fair to Gentiles, one might think, but Gentiles only have 7 things they only have 5 negative commandments of the 7 Noahide laws. And by the way, we're starting a Noahide center in the old city of Jerusalem. So please, if anyone would like to get involved in that, let me know. An actual Gentile Noahide
visitor center in the old city. Really exciting. And so feel free to message me on that. Send me a WhatsApp. I'll direct you to the director of that program. Anyway, so your soul's on a journey here, and it is going to get tarnished. Your soul is going to get messed up down here. And therefore, you want to clean it as often as possible. But there are certain things that are not worth, it wouldn't have been worth your coming down here for them. Meaning there are certain things that are so bad that your soul would be better off dead. Meaning, not your soul, your body be better off dead. And your soul getting out of here without having done it. You understand what I mean? Meaning your soul's just on a journey down here. And most of the stuff you can do wrong, okay, like clean it off. Do tshuva. Get to a Yom Kippur service, like figure out how to clean yourself off. Go to your local Orthodox rabbi and figure out how to heal yourself. But there are certain things that are so bad that you're better off checking out than doing it. And that's what that list of 4 is. Anyway, back to touching Hoovy is that it just ain't happening. That's a limitation. Whereas Mark, no problem, happy to shake his hand. And that is what's called the second attribute. And that's what this week is all about, is making sure your limitations are well in place, properly guarded, and that you're in that zone. Now, today's the 5th day of the second week. Well, what is that day? And the 5th of these 6 is the attribute of focus. It's called hod, but it means staying focused. So in our case today this was not a good day for me to start late. I was out of today's thing. I should have been more on it, but I really worked hard on it because I was very, very far away from Jerusalem. I was very far away from my car. I was in the middle of the mountains on a mountain bike, but the staying focused on your limitation, meaning you can keep your limitations fairly vague as long as they're in place when needed. I don't have to be thinking about it. I know meeting you, I'll relate one way, and meeting you, I'll relate another way. So that's fine. I can stay vague with that. But today it's got to be a focus. Today is the day where you're really focusing in on your limitations, because hod means being zeroed in. It's like a laser beam. Like light in general has the attribute of attribute number 4, which is called netzach, meaning if you shine a flashlight into the night, you'll see it for maybe a little bit, but it's gonna diffuse into the night. But it keeps going. You just can't perceive it. Whereas a laser beam's a flashlight that stays focused in on itself. That's this attribute. So that's why I said you need laser beam focus on your limitations. And this is the day to think about where you've been a little loose on your limitations. Where do you need to tighten up the bolts on your life? Like that's this week in general, but today is where do you get spacey where you should be actually on top of things? Like where are you spacey when it comes to limitations? And tighten up the bolts on that. So let's all take a moment. I want to do it myself. I'm afraid if I don't do it now, I'll forget. So let's all take a moment today, right now, and think about limitations that are appropriate that you've been a little spacey on. You've been not focusing in on those things for whatever your self-deceiving ways are. We all are full of self-deception. So everyone take a moment. You have a question before we do that?
Can we list the 7 things again?
Not right now. Let's first just do those 2. So we're just going to do focusing in on our limitation, meaning where do we got to tighten up the bolts? Okay, I've got one for myself. Not going to share it necessarily, but I got one for sure. It's an interesting week of parenting because that's our job as parents. Because kids are like, gimme, 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 gimme. And our job is to, well, that would ruin you. You know, like that would be cruel to give to a child when they want something. You know, like it has to be appropriate or you can really mess up a kid and ruin their adult life. You know, so you gotta be really careful of giving children. You can give, but you gotta do it very calculated. And so this week is all about parenting. And today would be where we're, you know, today would be like where we're not really dialed in. Where are you not dialed in with a kid? Because you've been overgiving. Overgiving children is just a disaster for that child. I mean, it kills their motivation later when they become teens. They feel they can't even get out of bed because they've just never learned to earn. You have to learn to earn, and you teach your kids earning so that they develop those muscles for themselves. Okay, that's anyway. But the sacred feminine is just being. It's just pure being and just being in your environment. And what I did was zeroed in on some of the prism of those 6 attributes. Okay, and what did you want? You wanted more of a list of those the various attributes? Yeah. Okay. So the first one is that's the giving, that's the flow. So like that's just flowing, giving, chesed. Chesed. It means just to flow and give and just spoil everybody and just be totally destructive. Chesed is just be so benevolent that you're left a shmata. You're left a shmata, and whoever you spoiled they're going to wind up, their personality is going to be damaged in the process. Today's the second week, so it's all about limitation. And the third week is called Tiferes. That's going to start on Sunday or Saturday night, and that's a really special week. That week is like, yeah. Well, it's really being hyper aware. Tiferes is being hyper aware of how you are interacting with everybody. Hyper aware of your interactions with the world around you, so that you really have the chesed, the limitation, the flow, perfect. Like making sure your limitation and flow is perfect. That'll be starting Saturday night. So we'll have like a whole week of hyper analytics on how we interact with the world to make sure limitation and flow are really set up properly. So like, for example, this week's Shabbos table, I'll be at the Shabbos table and you know, I may be careful to make sure one kid doesn't steal the show at the table. I'll be limiting kids on that level, you know, just to make sure everyone's feeling safe at the table. Some kids dominate more than others, and so I'll be the great limiter at the Shabbos table. Whereas next week I'll be kind of orchestrating more from above, and just maybe focusing a little more how I'm interacting with everyone. Make sure that I'm flowing love properly, but it's not like, you know, overdone anywhere, and it's not underdone. It's really hyper analytics on flow and limitation. And this also has to do with our diet. Like for this week, for example, you want to be like you should be eating like a bird this week. You know, this is not burger week. You know, this is not like giant burrito week. You know, and it's not junk food week. This is the week where your diet would be like super healthy and clean. Like you should be eating like sesame seeds or did I say sesame seeds? Sorry, I don't even know what I was thinking of at the time, but it was not sesame seeds. It was what do you call those seeds? Chia seeds would be a good example. Yeah, this is like chia seed week. You know, it's super limiting on you want to be like eating like just the most healthy, natural, as close to its original form, how God made it. Certainly not anything fried or nothing late at night, nothing heavy, you know, and really watching, you know, you want to also eat protein, but when are you going to eat it and what are you going to mix it with? And like this is all the limit week, so you want to be super limited in your intake in a way that's, you know, like pretty harsh on yourself. There's a good week to be hard on yourself dietarily. And then, but next week would be like really balanced eating, because there you're gonna want to eat well, but you know, with the limitations intact, but proper eating. But it's in everything we do, really everything. So like financially, this wouldn't be a very expansive week. This would be a more hold back week. Last week would have been a good week for investments and stuff. It's like, just like, let the dice roll, you know, like, make it happen. This week's more like, careful, be careful. And anyway, so then the fourth attribute is which will be in 2 weeks, that's Netzach, and that has to do with perseverance. So it's just being really consistent about your life. So for the first day of it is chesed of perseverance. The first day will be like, are you moving on the stuff you committed to? Like, are you in, and are you invested in there, and are you putting up something there? Like, you know, that's the first day. That would be chesed of Netzach. And so on. The next day would be limitation of Netzach is you know, whatever gets in the way of you being consistent. Like making sure that's not in your life. The things that are messing up your consistency are going to be pushed out on the second day of Netzach, etc. You just keep going through them. And anyway, but Netzach, today is Hod Shabbat Gevurah, yeah. So whatever, we did that, and then the following week, the 6th week, will be Yesod, and Yesod is really all about others. Like Yesod's not about you at all. It's really about the others, and so. You know, like, if I were going to tell you guys a story to get across a point, to be truly in Yesod, I would, like, tell a story that's so perfect for you all, that literally every one of you, and you're all from pretty different walks of life, each one of you would receive the lesson from that story. But if I were in a room full of 6-year-olds, and I was kind of substituting for a 6-year-old, you know, teacher, I tell a totally different story. I would want the same lesson to happen, but it would be a totally different story. That's all. This is all what's called Yesod. Yesod is about the other, and here I'm like, I am trying to interface in an effective way. So with you, it would be one story. In a school of 6-year-olds, it would be a totally different story, because it's about the other and how I interface effectively with other people. That's the 6th attribute. It's your 6th attribute is your interface with others, and so therefore that's going to be a week of hyper awareness of who you're involved with in your life. So the first day would be like, who should I have called that I haven't called? You know, like that would be the first day, because that's flow. Who should I be in touch with that I'm just not being in touch with? And is probably getting hurt and is developing a whole dramatic narrative about my not calling. And so who do I gotta call? That's be the first day of it. And then the second day is who am I walking all over that I've got to limit it. That's limitation on my interface. Like, who do I step on? Where are my stepping stones? And how can I tread lightly on people that I'm kind of bulldozing in life? You know, and be careful not to do that to people. It could be it could be one of your parents, you bulldoze them. And so you wouldn't want to do that ever, but certainly not on the second day of the 6th week. That's the interface. And that's why Jerusalem is the foundation stone of Jerusalem underneath the gold dome. It's called the Evan Shasia, or Evan Shatia. That is the interface. That is the USB cable interface. It's the wormhole of the spiritual and the physical is right there. And what's very interesting is that it was under Muslim rule until 1967. And God chose on the 6th week, meaning a couple weeks from now, on the 6th day of the 6th week, meaning interface within interface, like the hyper-aware of interface. On the interface of interface, and on the physical world, that thing called Yisod Shabi Yisod is the Evan Shasia. It's under the gold dome. That, in the physical world, shows up geographically right there. And in 1967, on the 6th day of the 6th week of this count, this cosmic count through these Kabbalistic things, is Kabbalistic beams that are prismed into reality. On that day was the 6-day war. So the 6th day of the 6th week was a 6-day war, 6 being interface. And amazingly, we have this miraculous war where no Israelis are killed, yet we defeat all of the enemies who are attacking at once. Meaning we got word that Israel gets word very early compared to most countries, that day we were going to be attacked. And we managed to wipe out air forces. There weren't a lot of people killed on their side either. It was going to be an air attack, and we basically wiped out their air forces of all of these different countries. Plus, there was some other warfare too, but the main thing was the air forces, and they were all crippled by that, and the local Arabs ran for their lives, and we got Jerusalem back. Even where this class is taking place was no Jews lived here. I mean, there was certainly no yeshivas, no Aish HaTorah. The other side of Jaffa Gate was where Western Jerusalem took place. This is on the other side of the pre-67 borders, which every millennial would love to see. They'd love to see us lose the Western Wall and the Jewish quarter of the old city. I mean, half the Arab quarter was Jewish quarter too. You can go through the Arab quarter, you'll see actual mezuzah holes on the doorposts in the stones. You can see mezuzah holes, but the millennials would love to see us out of here, as they liked it when Jordanians ruled here. Anyway, that's what took place on that day. And really, that was kind of a big opportunity for the Jewish people. It was a major opening spiritually for the Jewish people. That was the day that we could have begun the process towards a messianic era and the rebuilding of the temple. But the leadership of Israel were, people who were very Western and very not into such a messianic narrative. And they just invited all the Arabs back, meaning the place was empty. It was like choose an apartment and live in it. And The reason they did that was, and not that the Jews were going to do anything to any of these people, it's just that they know historically that when someone has a, meaning in Arab history, when someone has a victory, they slaughter the enemies everywhere. And so they just figured we're going to slaughter them all because they had been under Jordanian rule. And if Jordan's out of Israel, pushed to the other side of the Jordan River, if Jordan's out of Israel, then I guess we're all going to die. And so they ran for their lives. They didn't know who they were dealing with. They were dealing with Western Israelis, which is a total oxymoron. But the government of Israel was Westerners. And they were like, no, come back to your homes, and boy, I mean, that's just, soon after that began modern day terrorism that, everything from the World Trade Center to everything that's been blown up in the last whatever years was all started by a Nobel Peace Prize winning Yasser Arafat, who championed their cause and started what today is called modern day terrorism. All the planes that have blown up, everything that's turned our world into a world of distrust came off of those bleeding heart, liberal, westernized, Jewish leaders who, and we've been paying that price, and the world has paid that price ever since. That's the price. Number 7 is the final receiving, and that's this environment. We already did a meditation on that one. That's the sacred feminine. That's the receiver. That's our physical world here, which is where you just get present and you're in this world. So when it comes to, like, for example, Shabbos, which will be the 7th day of limitation. So there, your job isn't to be active anymore. Your job is just to freak out. Like, go to the beach and freak out on how the seashore, all that water just gets stopped by the shore. And like, wow. How this water is limited by this cup. It's like, just marvel at the rain. I mean, it won't be raining. I mean, God can do anything, but how rain, we need rain, but we would drown. So what does God do? He makes little packages called raindrops. Little packaged rain, which is this week. It's about limitation. So we need the rain, which is flow, but we need it packaged in a way that doesn't destroy us. And so that's Gevuros Geshamim that's why it's called Gevuros, because it's a little packaged rain, limited drops of rain. So Shabbos will be about just experiencing it all. Shalom, everybody. It was a pleasure. Please, again, go to Yom Tov MediaClub.com. Please go right there, Yom Tov Media Club, and sign up. Thank you so much for the support.
Everybody, Rabbi Glazer loves it when you clap. You gotta clap.